unless you were a signatory of the union, with one-offs like that. But that's dealing with a private service or a union. Um, Regarding the Fed or state, I'm not familiar with anything that is specific to voiceover. Certainly, there are licenses you can have, business licenses, if you want to be an LLC or if you want to incorporate your business, and then you need licenses. But I'm assuming that you're talking licenses specific to voiceover, and so no, not that I know of. If anyone knows something that I don't, please put that in the chat box.
Perfect. Or Lexi, if you want to clarify more. Um, okay, and then we've got how frequently should studio sound check be performed on the same studio?
That is a fantastic question because I will tell you, most people don't check their sound quality enough. And sometimes we get files from clients and they don't sound too good. And so we get back to them and they say, well, that's funny. I checked it 3 months ago and it was sounding fine. I'm exaggerating that number, but you should check, I think, every time you go to record, because I'm sure you've all been in this situation when something changes unexpectedly, whether a sound card blows or your input switches to your computer microphone rather than your store bought microphone. I mean, things happen with computers. So if you're going to record, I would just record 2 seconds and play back and listen to it and make sure it sounds good. It's not hard. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't take much time. I would do it every day, every time you start recording. Now, let me further to that point. Anytime you are adding on to a recording, so for example, you're in the middle of an audiobook and you take a break or you pick up the next day. I'm not sure whose phone that is, but if you can hit mute, that would be great. Yeah. So anytime you pick up a recording, not only are you checking the sound quality of your studio, but you want to make sure that you check the sound quality compared to the previous portion of the recording. So when you edit together different takes and different days of recording, it doesn't sound like it's been edited together by the listener or for the listener.
Um, okay, yes. And Lexi has a corporation that she will be using. So I wanted to know if I needed anything more than a general license. Okay. People are chatting, putting that in the chat. I also want to say Lexi was asking about pay to play sites, and that's a huge conversation that we can't really cover in this session. And furthermore, there aren't specific ones that we recommend over others. Different people I know have different experiences with each. So that's definitely a variant to consider. And I think it's a longer conversation, but we do recommend that you jump on several and see how that experience is for you, and talk to other voice actors about what they like, or how it's going. And we also do offer a class that we just did that will pick up again, I'm sure, in the winter, regarding intros to those classes. Um, Okay, so I'm continuing on here. Hi, Sabrina, a newbie voiceover actor. We love you. What other ways are there to audition slash book jobs other than pay to play sites? Because she's currently working with voices.com. That's great.
Yeah,
Um,
that is terrific.
yeah.
I believe that there are three ways to get work in this industry. One is through the online casting sites, which is also known as pay to play sites, also known as P2P sites. So that's one way to get work, and you're already doing that, which is fantastic. Second way to get work would be direct marketing. So that is setting out your demo, making phone calls, pounding the pavement as it used to be. I don't think anyone ever walks the pavement and knocks on doors anymore, but whether it's cold calling or setting up a distribution list or hiring someone to market for you, um, any form of traditional marketing is a second way to get work. And there is a lot of work to be had that way. The third way to get work, and I sort of mentioned this a moment ago, but the third way is to rely on someone else, like an agent or a manager. And then in that case, you have someone who is really looking out for your benefit. I will tell you that there are some voice actors who, in fact, many hundreds, thousands of voice actors who I know who rely only on one of those three ways. And I know many voice actors who rely on two of those three ways. And I know many voice actors who rely on all three ways to get work. In other words, three ways meaning that an agent or a manager, They also direct market themselves, and they also are on the online casting site. You have to do what's right for you. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on your comfort level of cold calling and marketing and how good you are at marketing. It depends on your experience and the kind of agencies or managers that you may want to work with. It depends on how good you are at auditioning by self directing, as you would have to do when you're on an online casting site. So lots of factors play into that. And that's a thing to work with. To work with someone who can help you figure out what might be best for you, and whether that's me or you find someone else. But I love questions like that. I love working with helping them figure out the best way to market themselves. So good question. Thanks.
Okay, David, is Edge doing in studio sessions in New York City?
Sort of. We've been opening up our doors about one day every other week, only for voice actors who really are in a bind, who really need to record something and they don't have access to a home studio that is of sufficient quality. That is the only time we're opening up our doors. And uh, I hope we have the chance to open up full time real soon, but we won't do so until I personally feel it is absolutely totally safe for my team and for anyone who enters our doors. And I don't feel comfortable right now. I may have mentioned this on a previous Ask Me Anything, but in New York City, where we have our main studios, we have 5 studios in Times Square. We were meant to close on March 11th of last year. Um, and right, Siobhan, to what you were saying earlier today, it really is almost a full year now, um, just about 10 months now. But I personally closed our studio 2 days prior to that. I closed our doors just for because I was concerned. We had a team meeting at work one day, and I said to everyone, you know what? I'm concerned about what's going on, and maybe we'll be mandated to close one day. I don't know. But grab your stuff, go home tonight at the end of the day, and don't come back until I feel that it's personally safe. And sure enough, like I said, 2 days later, the governor of New York City said, we are forced to shut down. Can you guys imagine that voiceover is not yeah, essential business? I'd put it up there with hospitals and firefighters. No. So we're still closed, and I can't tell you when we will open. Sorry. We all want to, but I don't know when that will be.
Yeah, we'd love to have in studio coaching sessions, but right now it just is not responsible for the student or for our coaches, to be doing that at
But
this
let me
point.
know this ends. Oh, sorry, Siobhan, but I'd like to end because, you know, even when when it is safe to open our doors, and we do, I'd still like to run anything calls by Zoom because, the vast majority of you are not from New York City, right? Siobhan was reading off some of the locations where you're from, and you're not going to from the UK for a 1 hour Ask Me Anything. So, Siobhan, let's talk at some point about continuing these even after the doors are open.
I would love that. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, it's great to connect with people and actually see people's faces. I mean, it's a really interesting conversation moving forward through this year and beyond of what we will continue to do remotely because of the accessibility of these kind of Zoom rooms and how we can do multiple things in a day because we're not commuting and the connections we make with people that we never would have encountered otherwise. So I do think that, cheers to that. I'm just having coffee, but it's in this really cool spiky mug that I'm really like, feeling vibing with today. So, although, hey, it's happy hour time in Oxford, right? We've got a Londoner, we've got some people abroad. Actually, I have no idea what time it is in Brazil. So, yes. Okay. David, I do have a question about how one gets more involved in e-learning as a as a field.
Yeah. So, couple disparate thoughts are coming to my mind. I would not even enter the e-learning genre unless that's really unless you're marketable for that genre, meaning your voice is right for it, and you've trained and you know how to deliver information in a factual yet friendly way, and you can organize and really make it clear to the listener. Uh, you do require some special training for that, and it's great though. Learning is one of the largest fields voiceover, and seem to be the fastest growing field. So it's already possibly the largest or second largest genre in our industry, and it's like by leaps and bounds. So if you are marketable in it, it's a great genre to get in. And to get work, you would, after your training, you would put together a demo that focuses exclusively on e-learning, and then you market hopefully to companies that specialize in e-learning, as we spent 10 minutes ago. Just do some, make some cold calls, reach out, get your distribution lists going, and do your thing.
Okay. I'm getting great comments and feedback in the chat. I do want to go back to acknowledging some of the online casting stuff and pay to plays, because someone was asking, can you start auditioning without a demo? I don't know if all of them require you to have a demo, so you're going to be more in the weeds with each different online casting site. Um, but a demo is always going to help you when you are auditioning for anything. Right.
Right.
So,
So let me actually take that and piggyback back to the e-learning question. So yeah, the demo is really helpful. And if you want to specialize in e-learning, if you, or at least you want to make a large percentage of your voiceover income from e-learning, then ideally, not only will you market to companies that hire e-learning voice actors, but you would have at least two, if not even three or four different e-learning demos. You may have one e-learning demo that caters to children, younger children, and one maybe toward college, and one for adult education, and one for business education. Business education being HR videos and films and compliance videos and all sorts of things that I'm sure many of you have taken in past online. The more your client suspects that you specialize in e-learning, then the more likely they are to feel comfortable with you, the more likely they are to think that they can trust your work, and the more likely they are to hire you. So if you go in with a demo to an e-learning company and you say, "Hey, I love e-learning, hire me," and you give them a commercial demo, that's not going to sit that well with them. They won't be upset, but they're going to think, "Well, we don't need commercial voice actors." And if you show up with a narration demo and you call yourself a voice actor, they might say, "Well, that's somewhat interesting." But then if you call yourself an e-learning narrator and you have three demos that focus on e-learning and a whole web page of your website dedicated to e-learning that says e-learning voiceover at the top and I specialize in e-learning and blah, 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 then they're, like I said, more apt to take you significantly more seriously and at least consider you. They may not think your voice is appropriate for a certain job, but you increase your chance tenfold of getting in the door and getting into their mindset. So there are lots of things you can do when it comes to getting work. And what I'm saying about e-learning works for any genre, by the way. You know, if you tell a client that you specialize in what it is that they're looking for, you're more likely to get hired. Okay.
heck yes. And continuing into the education realm, Melissa, this is great. I'm a beginner interested in animation and would like some theater experience, like Shakespeare. I'd normally join a community theater, but with theaters closed, that's not really an option. How can we build experience during this time?
Yeah, I need to understand. Are you looking to gain experience of legit acting or voiceover for animation? Because if you're looking to get into animation, studying Shakespeare is not going to help you in, well, it will help you in some ways, but it will hurt you in other ways because a lot of acting instructors are going to teach you how to use your voice and how to project your voice. And that's a big part of learning how to act on stage. How can someone, a theater goer in row Z, hear your voice without sounding like you're yelling at them? And so you're taught these breathing exercises and all these vocal techniques that help your voice carry, but you don't want to use any of that in voiceover or extremely rarely. Voiceover is more like film acting. So if you're looking for acting experience simply to help your animation voiceover career, then if anything, take film acting classes and make sure that the instructor truly understands that you're doing it for voiceover so they can hopefully sort of tailor your education to what it is that you need. I would suggest improv classes can be helpful at times. But again, it's making sure that your instructor understands why you're taking that class. Shakespeare, though, yeah, may not be the best thing for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think also if you're looking for more kind of live performance perspectives, I'm curious if you, um, and we've got other theater people in the space today, but there's a lot of digital theater happening. So I would encourage maybe popping in, finding some performances to go to. And, I think definitely part of like being in this practice is like if you want to be an audiobook narrator, you're probably listening to audiobooks, right? Like we consume as well as participate in, as well as are constantly being educated by the people, in our community. So yeah, okay, we've got people who just performed in virtual plays. This is so great. So I think like, yeah, maintaining, and I can certainly point you to some really cool performances. I'll drop my email in the chat. I have to like, I'm back from being away and not being super emailable. Just honest about how the year has been this year, the 5 days of this year. But yeah, I think like attending some stuff so you can see people, do create live characters, and I think is always beneficial for animation. But as someone who trained in animation at Edge as well, it is different than acting on stage. Or for film, right? These are different things that can be informed in different ways, but probably, um, speaking with a this is kind of our song and dance here, but speaking with a coach about your skills, your strengths and weaknesses regarding your acting abilities and creating voiceover characters. Your coach will be the best one to gear you to the space of where you might need more specific acting training. I mean, Jay Snyder, who is our Yugi, our animation coach, and the voice of Yu-Gi-Oh, as well as Mewtwo and Pokemon and several other great characters. He certainly has a theater background, but those talents are utilized in very different ways, to David's point, as an animation voice actor. So there we go. But I love that question. And I also think it's very important to always be a student. So I love you wanting to train and work in different realms of your performance. I think that that is helpful and good. Okay, this is a big question that I think we might get some thoughts in the chat about as well. But David, I'm gonna say your name is Ty, but it also looks like thank you because it's like the TY. So hey Ty, and thank you. How to research and fairly price one's VO services competitively. So how can I be competitive, but
Yeah.
also fair about my prices here?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's so scary for voice actors, right? Because you want to bid higher so you get more money, but then you think, crap, like maybe I'm charging too much and the company won't hire me. Maybe I should lower my price. And then you think, well, crap, maybe I'm underselling myself. And how do you find that sweet spot? It's really hard. Keep in mind, it's hard for just about anyone who provides services. Same with our production company, right? Same with our education. We sell classes and demos, and we still have to figure out a price that I can, make sure that everyone at Edge gets a paycheck at the end of the week. But I don't want to take advantage of anyone. But we do have rent to pay, even though we're not in our studio and stuff. And um, so, yeah, it takes a lot of research. So, a number of things, a whole lot of things come to mind. One, I would always start by saying just thinking about realistically, what is your time worth to you? That's really important. And if you say, and I'm going to use just round numbers here as template numbers, but if you say, I think that I'm worth at least $100 an hour, okay, just to, that meaning that number I'm stressing, I'm reiterating is meaningless, okay? I'm not saying that that's what you should charge, just as a round number. If you say I am worth $100 per hour because I could work somewhere else and make that $100 per hour, or for whatever reason, then I would make sure that you typically don't accept less than that because you will never feel good about it. Stand up for what you think is right. So there's the personal ethics portion of this, Um, then do look at what other voice actors are charging. Look at their rates. Some listed on their website. Another great place to start is on our rate card. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but on our site, our Edge Studio site, there is a rate card, and it breaks down what a typical, like a decent range to charges, depending on the genre and how long the project is, and all sorts of stuff. So, in fact, by show of hands, have any of you used the rate card on our site? About a quarter of you, half of you, cool, third of you. It's really, really a good starting spot. Mm. Then there's the idea of, well, you know what? If you have lots of client hiring, busier and busier, well, maybe it's time to up your rates. You can also look at some of the online casting, see what jobs you're going for, and that's another good place to start. Okay, but online casting sites are priced a little differently because the online casting site also has to make some money with the equation. So there are two people getting paid, whereas if you're the only one getting paid. So I think that those would be the starting points. Oh, something else you can do is if a client reaches out to you and they want to hire you for a training video, for example, you can sometimes say to the client, "Thanks for reaching out to me. Love your company. You do great work. I'm looking forward to working with you. For me to price this out, can you tell me what your budget is?" And sometimes clients will tell you what their budget is. Sometimes they'll say, "No, no, you give a price first." Last thing that comes to mind very briefly is, as a general rule of thumb, two parts of this actually. You can charge more money by doing two things. And I honestly believe you can charge a lot more money by doing these two things. One, feel confident and talk confidently about money with your client. And the second thing is ask good questions. Let me talk about each of these. If you are on the phone with a client and you're negotiating a price and they say, "Well, we can pay you $100, but you really want 150." If you sort of hem and haw and say, "Well, I would like to get, a little bit more, like, can you open the budget just a," if you have a conversation with like that without confidence, it's highly doubtful that the client is going to do anything for you. Whereas if you say comfortably and confidently, "Hey, I love the price you've given me. Thank you for that. However, my minimum rate is 150 an hour. I'd love to make this happen. Let me know if it's possible. The minimum rate I will go is 150, and this is what my clients pay, and this is what the time it's worth. And that rate may seem high to you, but I have invested a crazy amount of money into my experience, my talent, my studio quality, and I can tell you that the quality will be high quality. And you come up with three or four good bullet points to sell yourself. You talk about some good things, like if there's any mistakes, you will go back and re-record without charge, or whatever it is. But speak comfortably and confidently about money. And as I said, the second way you can charge more money is by asking really good questions. So I'm going to give you an analogy. And so imagine that you want to have a room painted in your home. So you hire, or you call upon a painter. The painter comes in to give you an estimate. They quickly look at your room and they say, "Okay, yeah, we'll it'll cost you $100 for us to paint your room." And then you think, let me get a second estimate. So you contact a second painter. Painter shows up in at your home. They look around the room and then they ask you like seven really good questions. They say, "You know what? I noticed that there's a different type of sheetrock on one wall. Is it okay if I use an oil-based paint on that instead? Because over the years, it's going to dry differently and look different and flake off or something. And the other paint's a little bit more expensive, but I'd like to budget that in. Also, I notice your moldings are the same colors as your walls. Do you want the moldings the same color or a different color?" And anyway, they ask you seven good questions, and then you answer those seven questions, and then they say, "Okay, we'll charge 125 to paint your room." So, which painter would you go with? The painter who asks no questions and says 100, or the painter who asks seven smart questions and says 125? Show of hands if you go with the 100. If you go with the cheaper, give me your show of hands. Okay, I'm looking at a page of, I think, 25 people, and there's not a single hand up. How many of you would go with the painter who charges 125? Well, there you go. Ask good questions. Okay, we do it at Edge with clients. We sometimes we look, if a client contacts us, a production client contacts us with all the information we need. It's great. They're so specific. Here's exactly what we need. The script is this many words. We need it by this date and this file type with this kind of voice actor. Then we put our heads together and we say, what questions can we still come up with? And we make sure to come up with some questions. And it seems to work really well. It just makes the clients think highly of you. It gains, they gain trust in you, and so on. So those are two different ways to charge more money.
Yeah, I'm also curious for working talent, and I love my people with their cameras off using the hand raising button. That was great. But I'm curious for folks who have been more in the business, if you have turned something down because they did not offer, they could not meet your rate. If people have stepped away from it, get yep, yep, okay, I'm scared. Yes, okay, right, and that is
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Nothing at all. If you know what your time is worth, don't give in. Now, you can sort of give in as long as you make it clear to the client that you're giving up something to lower your price. So if there's a client that you really want to work with, for whatever reason, this client will be fantastic experience for you, and you'll actually learn something through the, or you want that type of client on your resume, or you want their logo on your website. For whatever reason, you really want to work with a client. You say 150, they say, "Sorry, we love your voice, but our max budget is 100." Well, you can say, "You know what? I leave you to do the editing. Then I can do it for 100." Don't just drop your price, because then they have the upper hand on you. Again, take off something. Tell them, well, you know what? If you can handle the editing, and it's not that hard, and I'm pretty good, so there won't be that much editing, but if you can handle that, then I can make it $100. Or, you know what? I have a couple of projects already in the works right now. If I can record yours next week and not this week, then I could do it for $100 because I'll have time to work it in and weave it in throughout some other projects. If you come up with some reasoning for them, then I feel that it's okay to drop your price.
selling it, David. That's good, actually. That's super. Yeah, especially being like, it's not that hard to do this editing. I love that. I think that's great. Yeah, and again, I've thought a lot about our session with Tom last month and him talking about like your time is more important than your money and what a weird concept that is, but actually how meaningful of a thing that is. So on the subject of selling ourselves in the world that we live in, Ed is asking because Ed's just getting started with auditioning. So when creating a profile in Voices 123 or online casting, what do you recommend on highlighting about yourself, even though you don't have much experience? Like, how do you talk yourself up when you're new?
Well, it depends. Ed, have you taken classes and recorded a demo and worked with coaches? I don't know where Ed is, but if he has, or if you can chat in the box and he wrote down yes, well, then you have lots of experience, and write that out. That's your background. You know, uh, excellent voiceover training with these various coaches, and list each name. If you've taken with classes with 5 different people, put down 5 names. It sounds impressive. You've recorded demos, you've put together a home studio, you've had the quality of the studio checked out to confirm that it's industry standard broadcast quality or whatever. Come up with some verbiage that really suggests how well you've done. And then, the work on the demo is your work. You're not relying on fancy editors to sort of airbrush your voice. This is your work, this is what you sound like, and you're comfortable in the fact that you can deliver the sound quality that is heard on your demo. And once you receive the audition, if your voice is appropriate, hopefully they like your performance. And yeah, that's the kind of stuff you can put down. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great stuff.
Yeah, and actually, we've had students at Edge who have asked for their coach to provide a quote about them. And like you can have your educators saying something nice about you, and then you can be like, "Yeah, Johnny Heller says I'm amazing." Like and that's great. And our coaches will be happy to provide that if you guys had a good experience. But there's certainly ways to kind of get yourself hyped up before you have a ton of professional experience. And these are great questions. Um, Sort of a production question about Edge, David. How does Edge choose their voice talent for projects? Do we use casting sites, agents, or a roster?
Everything. And we don't choose, our clients do. The way we have always run our production department is to let the client choose the voice actor. There are certainly times that the client will say, "Can you send us 5 or 10 who sort of match this type voice?" And they describe the voice that they want, and yeah, we may do that. Sometimes we send just one demo if that's what they really want, if they're very specific and it's someone that we for a while. But typically, our clients will say, "We have a voice actor," and they come to us with a voice actor, or they listen to various voice actors out there on the web and say, "Person for," or a couple of voice actors on our website, and they pick one. Yeah, we let the client do the choosing. We operate a little bit differently than that than a lot of other production studios, but that has worked well for our clients.
Yeah, so that's a really good distinction to make, that we are um not an agency. Edge
Correct.
Studio has a production side as well as an education side, but not an agency side, which would be fun, but we don't, that isn't something that we do at this point in time. Um, okay, scanning all of the questions. From Vanessa, is it a good idea to complete the home studio course and then purchase equipment afterwards, as there are so many on the market?
Yes. Yeah. So if you're taking a home studio course, hopefully our course that's taught by Dan Friedman, I would definitely take the class before you purchase any equipment because you'll more than likely purchase equipment that's not optimal if you don't know what equipment to purchase. Right? You need to know what to purchase before you purchase it. So take the class and then buy your stuff.
And if you're very, very self-conscious or get easily confused about tech stuff, like some people in the Zoom, I don't know who, it's just some of us might get anxious about tech stuff, it is very worth it to get some one-on-one time with a professional where you can say, "Hey friend, I don't understand this." And the professional will say, "You're gonna be okay. Here's some things we can do," and having that one-on-one conversation, because I think sometimes you can take a big a class and then you can feel like you've got it, but then you're setting things up and you get confused, and like these are all things we have to learn. There's like hurdles to cross, and then you get comfortable and it feels fine. But like for folks who are anxious, I'm just letting you know you're not alone. Plenty of us love voiceover and feel overwhelmed by the tech. So having a conversation, there is no shame in talking to a professional and saying, "I am confused." And they will remind you that you are not stupid, you are very smart. You just have to learn some new things. So, and Vanessa, it's going to be the reason why I mentioned the one-on-one is because we have this happens often at the AMAs, it happens in group classes. What do you think of this mic? What do you think of this DAW? All of that stuff. There's gonna always be different opinions. The question is what works best for you, the individual, right? And that's a larger and often different conversation. What is your space? What are you what's specific for you? Because it's different for everyone. And that is a beautiful thing about the world. Okay, somebody left us. Okay, and then we do have questions about um I did see a question that said, how do you get an animation gig during the pandemic? Um with luck, if you're new, I think. I think. David, do you want to talk? Maybe we can talk a little more openly about, or broadly about, casting during the pandemic. Do you want to tackle any of that, David?
Yeah, I think in many ways it's easier to get work right now than it has been in past because years ago some auditions were done in person and those have I mean, over the years, that type of audition has pretty much dwindled away, but now it's completely gone. So, I mean, every job that you can get right now is an audition from home. So, what's great about that is once you get the audition, the client doesn't really know. Well, sorry, let me say this differently. When the client listens to your audition, they don't necessarily know. Typically, would they know that you're brand new or you're experienced for 30 years? So, there's a there's a lot of leveling going on. Like you might be listened to. Uh, oh, I'm fumbling for words here. I need a script to be able to read. So when the client listens to the various auditions they have, they may listen to your audition and you might be brand new. And the person they listen to right after you might be someone with 30 years experience. And the client doesn't even necessarily know that. So there's this level playing field. And that is really interesting. It is not necessarily fair to someone who's done this for 30 years, and it's sort of a lucky chance for someone who's done this for 0 days. So a lot of this comes down to just your voice and your performance. So training is more important, I think, than ever before. Training, not only voiceover training, but self-direction training. That is absolutely critical. That's something I teach in most of my audition classes. It's really about learning how to self-direct yourself, figure out what the client needs, decipher or anticipate what the client needs, and then be able to deliver it. Um, Sort of lost track of where oh, it was you were talking specifically about animation. So there is a lot of animation work going on, and even through the pandemic, best I can tell, at least from the work that is incoming to Edge Studio, narrated apps, kids cartoons, animated productions, video games with animated voices, these things have not slowed down at all. And in fact, maybe they've picked up because more people are home all day. So more people are playing more apps and yeah, games on apps and video games. But my goodness, there is a lot of call for the animation work right now. And I'm not suggesting to get into animation work if it's not right for you. But if it is right for you, there is a lot of work and it all happens from, or these days, it all happens from home studios.
Um, from Nancy, any tricks or suggestions for our lovely mouth noises when recording? Water, gum. I know different people will do different things. David, what do you suggest for voice actors when you're hearing a lot of mouth noises?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things to talk about. One is very often voice actors who have like noisy mouths when they record are are only are only creating that mouth noise because they're focused on the mouth noise, because they're concerned about mouth noise. Because when you are nervous, you make more mouth noise. So the more nervous you become about your mouth noise, the more mouth noise you make. So you become more nervous about your mouth noise, and that is a bad catch 22 to be in. So if you can get yourself into a positive cycle, very often all of the mouth noise goes away. So I've had voice actors sometimes record like I've recorded voice actors and when they're just BSing before a recording session starts talking about anything and there's no mouth noise and as soon as they start reading the script you hear it. So I'll play back something from when we were just kind of just talking about anything and setting levels and I'll show them look there's no mouth noise. Absolutely none. So again, if there's a chance that the mouth noise is occurring simply because you are nervous or concerned about it or focused on it, then best as you can, just eliminate it from your mind. Pretend it's okay. Don't worry about it. And it might go away. If that's not the root cause of the mouth noise, if there's a problem with the shape of your teeth, I do know some voice actors who've actually gone to dentists and had some procedures done to slide a tooth over, like use braces or something to close up a gap between teeth that might cause mouth noise or a whistle or sibilance or something. You can try different remedies, like Siobhan mentioned. Some voice actors swear by drinking water. I've heard some say that gives them more mouth noise. Some people say avoid dairy because that makes your mouth clicky. Some people swear by eating a green apple. Supposedly, the acid of the green apple helps dry out your mouth. I've heard people who eat bread between sessions, but then you might be gluten free or on a diet and you don't want the carbs. It's all kinds of stuff. You have to figure out what works for you. There are products at the pharmacist you can purchase for dentures that help declick your mouth. Like I think it's called Biotine, and oh, there's another one. If anyone knows the name of these, put them in the chat. I think it's again. I think one is Biotine. But I would say experiment. Absolutely experiment. And if you think your mouth is clicky, then start experimenting today. Go to the grocery store and buy a green apple, a piece of bread, different kinds of honey tea, biotine, buy one of everything you can and do some tests and figure out what works best for you.
It's funny when people are like, you might be overthinking this problem and it's making the problem worse. I don't think that's ever folded into any other aspect of my life with anxiety, etc. These are all great. And yes, we're all going to have different experiences with mouth noises and it's really a fun time and sometimes you listen to yourself and you're like, how does anyone listen to me talk? That sounds terrible. So I love it's the fact that it's tax season and we're talking taxes in the chat. So
Siobhan,
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Before you give that next question, One other thing to think about with relieving mouth noise, or at least mitigating it, I've seen a lot of people who try different microphones, or they stand to the side of the microphone, in other words, more off axis of the microphone. And to your ears, that may eliminate some mouth noise, but to the engineer who receives your audio is not as clear. So that would not be my first choice. I would not get a microphone that doesn't pick up the higher frequencies. So, it only gets the bass of your voice and therefore doesn't pick up the mouth clicks because now your recording sounds flat and dull and doesn't have the crispness to it. So I would not just go out and purchase a different microphone because you have mouth noise. The Apple might do it, or the bread, or lack of thought about it might do it. Okay. Back to the tax question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Don't blame the gear.
Yeah.
Oh. Look at yourself first. Um, yeah, so I just kind of want to tap this conversation because obviously we cannot do everyone's taxes for them. I am currently dreading. I like to actually get started on it in January. Who's nerdy with me and likes to get it started so that when everyone's upset in April, you're not. That's my personal advice. Start doing it now. Book your time with your accountant. Dina has mentioned this. And people are asking these questions, and these are very good, important questions. And we have to remember as voice actors that the things that we spend money on, that we have to spend money on, which is all of our gear, all of our DAWs, our training and education, that is an investment in our craft, which is taxed, which is part of our taxes. So you are going to want to have conversations with your accountant as to how to best do this. There's all kinds of levels with which you are, I don't know, starting an S corp, paying yourself from it. I mean, things get really, really wild quickly in terms of being like, what is all of this? So I just want to say, having a conversation with your advisor. If you don't have one, my advice would be to get one. Tax advisor, account, get someone to have these conversations with. Don't use, what are these things called? Tax slayer or whatever. Don't do that anymore. That would be my advice. David, any general tax advice for our freelance voice actors here?
Yeah, well, I like it to be ultra clear that Siobhan and I are not tax experts. So we're only giving you friendly advice. With that said, I believe, but again, I'm not certain, but I believe that you can deduct a certain portion of your home, your studio, if that portion of your home is used exclusively for your career, for voiceover. So if you record at the kitchen table, in other words, when everyone's done eating breakfast, you bring over your laptop and your portable microphone. I guess all microphones are portable, aren't they? You bring over your mic and your stand. That area is not being used exclusively for voiceover, right? That's your kitchen table. But if you have a nook somewhere in your home that is just used for voiceover, and that square footage is 5% or 10% of your home, you may be able to deduct 5 or 10% of your payments out or sorry, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a crud in front of all of you. I can't think of the name of this. Utilities. You may be able to deduct a certain portion of your utilities, even. So if you're using 5% of your home for your studio and for nothing else, maybe 5% of your electric bill and 5% of your heating bill and air conditioning bill can be taken off on your taxes. But again, you need to speak with your accountant about that, your tax advisor.
Yes. So the main thing that we are suggesting is having conversations with professionals. But I think it's good to hear from, people dropping things in the chat. Like everybody's kind of in different stages with their business or how they run their business, or maybe they live with someone who runs a business. You know what I mean? Things get really particular really quickly, but it's really important to think about it and to expense the things that you are spending money on, which is encouraging for you to, as Tom was telling us, invest in your craft. Okay, we have a ton of other questions. So this is again generic, and I want to get to you, Mercedes, because you've asked a few things, but like, maybe David can, big questions here, but how do I start to begin a voiceover career? And she's asking, like, do I do a class first before I select my background or buy equipment? Yeah. I just
Step one for anyone is to determine that you could be marketable. I would not move forward until someone with trained ears can listen to you read and say, you know what? I hear no red flags. In other words, you don't have an accent or dialect that is never hired in the industry, or you don't have a reading disorder. You're not able to control your voice in any way at all. Let someone listen to you. Let someone assess you and figure out if there is the foundation to move forward. And that has to be the starting point. And then you want to work with someone and help them understand your personal interests and your goals, and well, with those two pieces of information, they can help you figure out what genres might be best for you to go after in this industry. I guess that would be based upon not only your personal interests and your lifestyle, but also your natural voice, and how the your voice comes out of your mouth, how it is that you read. I mean, all of these factors have to be considered. And you may find that you're great for animation, or maybe you would be horrible for animation, and maybe you would be better for audiobooks, maybe nonfiction audiobooks, or maybe you'd be better at e-learning. There are 27 different genres to choose from, and maybe you should stick with just one of those. Maybe you should be good at all of them. I mean, there are factors. And I would say this is tantamount to opening up a retail store. Like, you can't just open up a store or a restaurant without having a focus. You'd have to open up, if you wanted to open up a retail store somewhere, you'd have to think about, well, what is it that I want to sell? What needs are there in my area? What do people buy? What would I be good at selling? What would I be good at stocking? What do I like to sell so I can be personally interested in what it is that I sell? Same thing with voiceover. So yeah, step one, make sure that there are no red flags. Step two, figure out where you belong in the industry. Then step three, train and record a demo, and then go out there and market. So in a nutshell, that's the steps I would take. And Siobhan, we have some classes on those first two things. So I don't know if it makes sense to put that in the chat or something.
We do. Yes, I'm actually just rounding up some of these things to drop in the chat, and I want to in 5 minutes left to just do one last question, which I think is an interesting one as well from Erica. Um, when a person claims broadcast quality sound, what stats are they basing that on? I have an acoustically treated sound booth with a noise floor of negative 50 dB. Is this sufficient for running a live directed session where an engineer records me? When I audition, I run sound reduction to offset the noise floor. Is this still broadcast quality sound?
Yeah, good. Really fun question. It could be, it may not be. I mean, you may have a recording area with no noise in the background, like a really, really low noise floor. But then again, it could be because your microphone is cruddy and is not picking up anything. And so, even though there's no noise, no hum, no buzz, no hiss in the background, no furnace running, no air conditioning running, no footsteps above or beyond or anything like that, if your voice is not clear, it's still not good. So I'd have to hear your file to be able to tell you. I don't know what the actual definition of broadcast quality is, but I would suggest that it would probably be around minus 3 dB with a balance EQ from 20 hertz to 20K. Well, with voiceover, you can sort of roll off from 100 hertz down, um, or even 500 hertz down, start rolling off a little bit. Uh, but there are a bunch of different factors to listen for. So I guess again, the EQ balance, the volume level, um, the tonal quality, the clarity, lots of factors.
Yeah, so with all of that being said, I love having you all in this space where we can have a variety of questions across the spectrum of our skill set. And I just want to shout out everybody. You guys are lovely people, and I appreciate the kindness and the positive energy that this room always provides, answering each other's questions, cheering each other on. I just want to personally thank you for maintaining that goodness and kindness which is what we want to move forward with in 2021. There have been so many great conversations. I know for some folks who are like, how do I get started into all of this? Edge Studio does have our Investigate Voiceover class, which does provide you with an evaluation. We do have a discount code for IVO5, so you can get in with any of those classes. We offer them constantly, and that code will always work. That's as a thank you from us. Someone else was asking about the home studio checkups. We no longer do those checkups because we didn't find that they were serving as well as we want them to. So what we do now is as a full-on session. And what we can offer is a discount as well. With this code, the code AMA, you can get $25 off coaching with any of our instructors, including Dan Friedman. Again, super nice, wonderful person who will talk you through your home studio stuff. And coming from me, I have worked with Dan and said, Dan, I feel stupid and I don't understand anything. And we actually have a lot of fun. So that's just my personal experience with this to ease your potential nerves. For people who are like, what to do with the DAWs, I just don't know. We do have Audacity coming up. And if you join us on the 21st of this month, we will have Art Bruder, who's going to come in and ask questions. He's a professional voice actor and a coach with us. So we can talk to him very personally about his career and his life, personally regarding VO, not personal, like, sorry, I get, language, what? But his class is coming up and you can learn all about Audacity with him. And we also have finally a Taming stage fright in the booth class, which I think is a really awesome way to talks about a lot of the themes that we've been talking about today, and how to tackle your work and this career with confidence moving forward. So I love Mr. Art. Oh, Lexi, you're so sweet. We're so proud of you. And dearest, thank you for being here. If people want to drop social media handles, websites, and things in the chat, now is the time to do it. We have hit the 2 p.m. threshold. Thank you, Melissa. David, any closing remarks on this first session of 2021?
Yeah. Have a great year, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Many of you, I've recognized many of your faces from previous Ask Me Anything. So it's great that you're with us for a second year. Siobhan, thank you as always. You do an awesome job moderating. And I love these and I hope you find them helpful. And again, I wish you a fantastic year and a successful career at that.
Thank you, everyone. Any questions you have regarding these, you can shoot them over to the social media accounts. I'm the person behind the curtain, I guess, digitally. And so until then, we'll see you on the 22nd at 1 p.m. Same bat time, my Rocky Horror fans. We will be with Art Bruder, and it's going to be super duper lovely. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. Mwah.